You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. Sorry that we're a few minutes late, but we got caught up watching old videos from 1983. So that's one of the dangers of when you're able to come over in person, so we can actually get wrapped up in all these other things and then look up and go, oh, yeah, we got a show to do.
Guess we do have a show.
Yeah, maybe we should get to that. So here we are. We're getting to that, of course. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying our Skeleton Crew reviews. But we're taking a break from that today because we're actually on for the second time this week, which is something that actually hasn't happened in a while. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while since we've been able to do this, but hey, you know what? It feels good. We're doing something other than Skeleton Crew, even though we have been enjoying doing that. So we're going to talk about everything that's scheduled for release, at least pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, the one thing that I didn't do on that computer is call up the article that we're referencing.
Fortunately, I do have it.
Okay, good.
Handy.
Good, because, like I said, there's a lot of different things that are coming out, not so much on the movie front. Now, of course, if you're interested in the Star Wars movies, you're going to have to wait until 2026 for that. Basically, for 2025, we're talking some animated shows. We're talking, a few, like one live action, right? I mean, I think we only have one live action. And then we have a bunch of books and comics. So, I mean, there are a lot of things, again, that we can talk about. But before we get into the list, just to warm it up and let everybody sign on since we popped on live. If you had to look forward to one project that was coming out this year, or at least allegedly, because this is Lucasfilm we're talking about,
right?
What would that be?
Oh, easily Andor season 2.
Yeah, I think so too.
Easy.
Well, I
Easy,
didn't think you were going to say Visions Volume 3. I mean, I didn't think there was any danger of that.
No, definitely, it's Andor season 2. There's some things that I wish they would. I'm curious as to, because there's a section of tonight that we're going to probably eventually get to. We're talking about Star Wars Celebration, so that's a piece that might hold some gems for us. So we'll see. But as of right now, definitely Andor season 2.
And technically, I mean, you wouldn't be too far off if somebody wanted to be, I don't know, almost a little funny, but it's kind of true, is that technically the season finale of Skeleton Crew is in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's actually the first thing on our list, actually, is Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew is the first thing. I don't have a slide for that one, but I didn't really feel the need because we're right in the middle of reviewing the stupid thing, and it's like,
right.
But yeah, I mean, we could talk a little bit about Skeleton Crew. Obviously, there's only, well, let's see, because our show has been so off, how many episodes are actually in 2025? I mean, obviously the one coming out tomorrow, last week, that would be it. Yeah, so I mean, episodes 7 and 8 are the only ones in 2025, but we are looking up, forward to that wrapping up. So I think that that's going to be cool. Definitely. Now, of course, we did have one person, Ted Adam Green, he checked in today. He says, not going to make it, guys, as I had an early morning, but I'm most excited in 2025 to see how Skeleton Crew ends. Okay. Then watch Andor and find out what the new animation series, I think he means are, because there's multiples. Thanks, guys. So, yeah, and, look, we're definitely going to get to all of that. But I think it's important to note that this year seems to be the year of, I think, deeper canon. If you look into a lot of the things that are coming out this year, I think it's going to be people who are interested more in the deeper canon. I don't really see this as a like a casual fan year for people when it comes to Star Wars.
Uh,
I mean, it's a good year to turn into a deeper fan if you are a casual fan. But, aside from maybe the end of Skeleton Crew, which again, unfortunately, doesn't really seem to be doing very well in the ratings, which surprises me. I remember when you and I were basically talking about that. Ronaldo says, "What's up, my Ricotta brothers? What's going on? You're just in time." 'Cause
Naldo, glad to
Ronaldo,
see
a
you.
lot of times lately anyway, it seems like Ronaldo tends to join us towards the end of the show. And I'm all like, man, he's got to go back and watch the beginning. And so now you're here at basically the beginning. All we did was just make a little bit of small talk about not being a year for casual fans and watching old videos from 1983. So you're actually right on time.
Right on
So
time, my friend.
right on time. So I mean, you basically already kicked this off pretty much when we were talking about Andor. So Andor season 2 is probably the first thing. Well, wait, this comes out in what, April?
Yeah. So this
Like
is coming out.
22nd? Is that what it
Yes.
was?
Yeah, right after. So it's basically coming out right after. So Star Wars Celebration.
Okay.
So let's see. Yep. It will come out on April 22nd, just 2 days after Star Wars Celebration wraps. Um, we don't know if it's going to be a multiple season, not season, multiple episode premiere. Like we usually get, the first 2 episodes or something like that,
I
or
would
first
think
3.
I would think so. I thought I read that because remember each of these episodes what's going to be like a trilogy, right?
Yeah.
It's like in
So
groups of 3 still. So I mean, I would imagine they would do like the first 3.
yeah. So there's 4 3-episode arcs. This is
Okay.
going to be so. There's 12 episodes altogether, and they're dividing them into 3-episode arcs, and those will be kind of the last remaining 4 years leading up to the events of Rogue One, and then um, let's see. I think they have. Oh yeah, so season 1, which covered the first of the 5 years prior to Rogue One, the and then this will cover the last remaining 4 leading up to Rogue One. Um, let's see. Tony Gilroy wrote episodes 1 and 3. Bo Willimon wrote episodes 4 and 6. Dan Gilroy penned 7 and 9, and Tom Bissell drafted episodes 10 through 12. Um, and so we have Ario Kelman, uh, Janice Met, Janet. Well, I think it's Janice Metz, and Alonzo. I'm not going to try to butcher this person's last name.
I was going to say I guess that's a pretty challenging thing. We should
Yeah,
maybe talking about Andor, we shouldn't even be talking about names cuz
but they would take over the directing duties for
okay.
um, this half of Andor.
All right,
So, like I
well
said,
that makes
season.
sense.
Yep. So it drops April 22nd. So mark your calendars, and then, like I said, we'll be going through the um, 3 or the 4 3 episode arcs. Also to know, Ben Mendelsohn is returning. Alan Tudyk will be there playing K2SO. Ben Mendelsohn also played Orson Krennic from
Mhm.
Rogue One. Everybody who was in the first season will be returning. So uh, Stellan Skarsgård.
He's the one
Okay,
that
probably
played Luthen, right?
Stellan.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so.
So yeah, that should be I mean
Denise Skull
it's good
and
that
yeah.
everybody is doing that because if you think about it, they actually had quite a bit of uh I won't say like a cliffhanger. I mean, there was a little bit of that, but I mean, it was really more like every character from season 1 has something to do in season 2.
Hmm.
There wasn't really anybody that was left that didn't have some sort of a storyline that I think would be of interest to everybody. Because sometimes you have these characters that come up in a season, and usually they're fine if they're contained within that season because either they wrap up their storyline or it just isn't very, it's non essential practically. But this, I think every character had some sort of an arc where you're like, well, I want to see where this goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially since, in this season, between each gap, so after the first three, second three, third, there's a year in between
Oh,
each of
right.
the
Right.
each of the jumps.
Yeah,
So
that's going to be
that's also
interesting.
important to kind of keep track of.
Yeah, that's
As we're
definitely
moving forward.
something that, is going to be an important thing. And I'm sure that's going to factor into our inevitable review. Ronaldo says, very high hopes for this one. That's good. I think we all do. I believe Tony Gilroy said he received no notes for season 2. Well, that's that's outstanding because that means that whatever we're getting the pure vision from these guys. No interference from, the
Higher
Empire
ups or
herself. Yeah. Kathleen Kennedy, right? There's not going to be any of that. And really, there doesn't need to be because honestly, Andor was one of those few series that both critics and fans were both raving about. It's like, okay, if you do anything to this, you're kind of an idiot.
Mhm.
Why would you even do this? You have plenty of other shows that you can wreck. And she has. So, all right. So this next one, there's really not a whole lot I don't think you and I are going to say about it. Young Jedi Adventure Season 2.
Yeah, about that.
I don't really see us like going too in depth on this one. I didn't even see season 1 to be completely honest and upfront with everybody here. Did you watch it?
No, I couldn't even get through. I I barely got through Resistance, so um, but if you have little ones, and you want to introduce them to Star Wars, this is probably a good place to begin for them. Um, and then as they subsequently get older, then maybe they can move up to Skeleton Crew, where you're getting people getting decapitated and threatened with lightsabers.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things where who knows? I mean, Skeleton Crew was technically a kid show too, and yet
Well,
that
that's
turned
what I'm
out
saying. Like you got to wait
way
till they get a little
darker.
bit. And that's probably like 8, 9, 10 years old. When they're at that age. This is more Blue's Clues.
Yeah, I
This
was
is
gonna
more like your
say,
3, 4, 5-year-olds.
yep. I could see some of these guys in like Fortnite or something. I mean, this one just, yeah, I don't know, man. Again, I don't want to say that it's bad. It probably just isn't for us, really, right? It's not.
Right.
And even Ronaldo chimes in. Oh, that was the wrong one. Here we go. No comment here. We are not the target audience.
Exactly.
I mean, it's right, exactly. I mean, you know, it would be unfair to really attack the thing too much because again, we're not really the audience for this. He goes on to say, that koala looks cool though. And again, there's a lot of times though that you sometimes think that something might not be for you, but you could still glean something out. Like Resistance is an example, as is Skeleton Crew turned out to be quite the surprise actually, because I sort of dismissed that as a kid-centric show too. But there was one other one though. There was another one that I remember recently that I'm like, I don't know if I'm really going to be into this, and I ended up being into it. And I'm surprised I don't remember because that's not usually the case with Star Wars, right? There's like been very, very few things that lately I'm super complimentary. I mean, if you look at a lot of our reviews, honestly, it's like I'm trying not to bag on every single thing that they come out with, but you know.
Hey, you can play the cards you're dealt.
Well, and that's it. And I mean, again, it's almost like the Legos series, right? At first, I didn't think that was going to be for me, but I love this, especially like the Star Wars Lego stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, it's brilliant writing. It seems like it's geared towards kids, but in a lot of ways, it really isn't.
Well, again, it's because they know parents have to watch this stuff with their kids. So it's like, okay, you probably have to stick a bunch of stuff in there that the parents can relate to, especially if you're a Star Wars fan.
That's
It's
true.
stuff that you can relate to and understand and kind of have fun with your kids while they're looking at the little goofy stuff. You're kind of like laughing at some of the jokes or the things that because you remember like the original trilogy or stuff that's happened in, some of the other films. So
Yeah, and I
that
mean,
makes sense.
it does. And again, some people would like the whole young Jedi adventures and stuff like that. Some fans, I think, overreact sometimes because they forget, number one, that Star Wars originally was geared toward kids. But then the other thing is, now that there's so much and you have multiple generations that are into this stuff, everybody wants every project to be pretty much for them.
Hmm.
Either for them personally, you get some people that get carried away like that, or at least for their demographic, whatever that may be. Because you could split that up in multiple different ways, including the type of fan you are. Are you a casual fan? Are you like a super geeky? I know every little, like I'm practically a walking Star Wars encyclopedia. I mean, not everything is going to be geared toward that. And so I think you have to be careful, when you're talking about stuff like this, you have to allow for certain projects to come out that you might not be that into.
Hmm.
I think it's kind of a mistake when Star Wars fans start getting really critical because they're acting like every single project that comes out must appeal to them or their personal taste or, whatever it is. And it's like, look, no, you have to have some stuff that's, you know,
Well, I think what it is because originally when Star Wars was released, and certainly you can speak to this, there wasn't a whole lot of extra content. It was just what it was, and you just had to get it. And I was just thinking this as you were kind of talking, like you saw this. So Star Wars. So in '77, you were 7, right?
well, I would be 7 in August,
You,
but technically when it came out, I was still 6.
so okay, so you're 6, and you're going to see it. Did you understand everything that you were seeing?
Yeah, blew my mind too.
Hmm.
But that's because Lucas was masterful, though, at. Yeah, I mean, that's not to say like some of
Well, honestly,
maybe
I mean,
like some of the maybe some of the more like political overtones may have gone over my head. I mean, it's kind of funny because I remember, this is so bizarre because I still can't believe this is actually true. I remember like it was yesterday sitting in that theater for the first time watching it.
Mhm.
Like I remember even though I saw it at because remember theatrical releases back then because there was no such thing as home video.
Right.
On TV was like a new thing, and that was like some box that piped in movies or something. That was like revolutionary. I mean, the fact that you can watch a movie in your house was just
Mhm.
unheard of back then. I remember that was one of the biggest things, you know, with the presidents, like, wow, the White House actually has a movie theater in it. I mean, it's that kind of a thing. So they actually would have a theatrical release and then they would pull it for a while and then they would re-release it later. That's actually what confused us about the first one because they had it was called Star Wars. They re-released it in like 78 or something and now it's called A New Hope and you're like, "What?" Like episode 4. Wait a minute. I don't remember that being there. But the point that you're making though, which is true and it's a point that I have made several times myself is the fact that so we were the first generation, right? And then
Mhm.
okay, now we're getting a little older, and then the generation under us, and you have this repeating multiple times. Well, okay, now there's probably like 4 or 5 generations of Star Wars fans. So now not
Yeah.
everything can appeal to you anymore. I mean, back when Star Wars was first coming out, my generation was the only one. I mean, sure, you had all the adults that were in it, but still.
Well, I'm also thinking too because I'm trying to remember. I think I was 8 when I saw it, 8 or 9. And the thing is like some some concepts of it, like okay, I understand overall like what was happening,
Mhm.
but in some ways, like, I don't know if some kids would be, I hate to say it, but like just
I
smart
know.
enough or,
No, you're
just would
right.
grasp it. And I think
Well,
that's why we have certain things like, young Jedi, because I can't see like a 6-year-old sitting down and watching like you, like a 6-year-old watching something so advanced like Star Wars and getting it. Like
but I
you
think that
would
that
probably need
was
something like a young Jedi or something, but now
well, that was like
and now you
Lucas's
have that, but
brilliant
back then we
though.
didn't.
Right. Well, and I think we didn't have a lot of things. And I think that, I mean, not to get down another rabbit hole or anything, but I think that the lack of a lot of technology, I think a lot of the lack of having the answer to virtually any question you want at your fingertips, where, I mean, if I wanted to know the answer to something back then, I had to go to the library and to know how to use a card catalog. I really had to know how to
Hmm.
research things. I mean,
We Decimal System.
information, right. It was more difficult to come by back then. So, you didn't have a lot of things like, melting your brain basically like you do now. And I mean that figuratively and literally because, who knows what all these like cell signals are doing to our head. I mean, nobody's really done a whole lot of long-term research on this. I'd be interested to see, but you just had to people back then were it's it's kind of weird. It's like sometimes we say that kids nowadays grow up too fast because more stuff is available to them, and that's true.
Hmm.
But back then, there was a certain sophistication and general knowledge the kids had back then that they don't now. And so I think that
Yeah.
that sort of affects it. Plus, you have to look at the fact, too, that Lucas was really, really genius at being able to convey a lot of these complex ideas, sophisticated themes, things like that in a what amounts to a parable that anybody could understand. I mean, and that's when we talk about how Star Wars is timeless, and how
Yeah.
it's broad themes and everything like that. That's easy for people to get. You don't have to cram super specific things into it because it just sort of speaks to whatever time it's in because it's timeless.
Yeah.
So yes, but again, because the franchise has been around for a while, sure. Now you want to do the, hey, look, it's the Sesame Street of Star Wars.
Right. Exactly. Like the Blues Clues of Star Wars.
Sure,
Right. And you're
exactly.
yeah, and that's I think that's just the difference why I think a lot of people from like your generation, my generation, we look at like, oh, do we have to have another one of these stupid little things running around?
Well,
Because we didn't
because
have it and we felt like we didn't need it.
right
So it's
now
like,
that's a
why do
that's
this?
a good point too.
And that's the crux of my thing is we didn't need that. It was just start like you said, Star Wars, A New Hope. We had to read the crawl, so you had to be able to read. As a at 6 years old, you have to read. I mean,
Yeah, you
and we're
must.
reading
There should be
like
like a
this
little
whole
yardstick.
thing, and they got some, the Galactic Empire. Like, okay, you're 6 years old. What the
I
heck does
know,
that even?
right?
But you have to be able to process this stuff
Hmm.
as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid,
Yeah, there's a certain
and
responsibility on you as the viewer to understand this.
right.
And if you don't, figure it out. It
Or you
sounds
gotta
so
ask,
like
you gotta ask your parents, like, "Hey, what's a Death Star?" It's like, then they'll just tell you, "Oh, watch, you'll find out," and you have to pay attention, and like it was just a different time. I mean, it really was, and
well, yeah. I mean, you could even say that if we were having this podcast back in the 90s compared to the 70s, but that is especially
yeah,
true now. And I mean,
hmm
it's true. I think that you do have to, I mean, you don't want to put it out there like this, especially nowadays, but you have to be at least this perceptive and intelligent to,
Ride this
watch
ride.
this. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get much enjoyment. But even if you are somebody who, let's just say, you don't get it the first time, right? As you grow, as you either grow both physically and also mentally, emotionally, intellectually, all that,
Hmm.
you can always go back to it and glean something new.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that speaks to the timelessness too, is that yes, I did understand everything, at least at a basic level at 6 years old. Like,
Mhm.
I got it. No, I didn't know what the Clone Wars were. What, but a
Yeah,
lot of
the
that is
adults
because
didn't.
you're,
The
yeah,
adults didn't even know what that was.
no, I mean, there's a lot of information in there where you're like, I don't really know anything that they're talking about here. What's a Sith? Because they didn't mention it in the movie, remember?
Hmm.
That was actually on the action figure. Darth
Yep.
Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. I'm like, the what? Where did that come from? And it
What's a
wasn't like
Sith?
you could Google it back then.
Right. Exactly.
You had to wait for an interview. Now you could go on the Star Wars data bank or whatever on their site and you can get the entire history of the Sith. You didn't have that back then.
Hmm.
So a lot of it was, information would come little by little. And like I said, even though, sure, I got everything at least at a basic level at 6, when I returned to it in my teens, when I'd watch it again in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond, you do maybe get something a little bit new out of it because you have a different perception. You understand maybe some themes that maybe you didn't understand before. So there is that. But speaking of which,
Hmm.
we we get to go to your favorite project.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Visions Volume 3. Now, as sure as I am sitting here today, let's see, Visions Volume 1 came out a couple years ago.
Hmm.
So I would have been like 52 maybe. And look,
This is.
I understood more at 6 years old watching Star Wars than at 52 I did watching Vision Season 1. I can,
Right.
I could say that. I mean, there was a lot of times where I felt like a little kid watching this going, I don't know what I'm watching right now.
Exactly.
Some of the stuff, yes, and I I liked where a lot of it was going. I didn't think the execution in season 1 was all that great. It was way too all over the place, and it had some really weird episodes that just
Yeah.
seemed like art house projects. Like, I don't know. I don't
Like I
even
said,
know what am I supposed to get out of this.
it's very avant-garde, man. That's all I can say.
That's a good. But now Vision season 2 though, that actually came up a little bit. I mean, you actually even liked half of the episodes.
True.
So,
True.
from that standpoint, I'm hoping, and again, I think one of the changes that they made, or I should say one of the reasons why we liked it is because one of the changes in season 2 or volume 2 is that they started to use animation studios from all over the world. You had an Indian anime studio, you had like I think it was like Spanish or something. Um, you had, of course, you had Japanese.
Hmm.
You had a couple, I forgot like where everything originated.
Yeah, because I remember one was from like Ecuador. I know there was one from.
Yeah, that's right. There
uh
was a South American one too. And then there might have been like one from either New Zealand or
Yeah, something way.
something like that, maybe Australia. I don't know.
Yep.
But I remember it was all over the world. And I think that added a lot to it. And the stories and everything made a lot more sense. And I
Yeah.
think it lived up more to what Visions was supposed to be, which is basically an anime what if, right? Like, it's not canonized at all. So they're not beholden to any canonical things that they have to, make sure you include this and don't say this or whatever. It's basically like you got a wide open palette, just create some sort of an anime episode in that takes place in Star Wars, or at least borrows a lot of the imagery, and then, tell whatever story you want, which is what they did. And season 2, I think, did it a lot better than season 1. So what information do you got on volume 3 that we can expect.
Well, like you said, season one was entirely anime, while season two broadened its horizons with other countries contributing with their own shorts. Season three will feature once again some of the studios from the first season, which left the door open for potential follow-ups for some of its shorts. So, um, like Ronin, for example, like that was like one of the
Well,
like
he
that was like the
was
first one.
yeah, and he was supposed to actually spin off into like a novel or a comic or something. I think he did get a comic eventually. Or he might have even
Yeah,
got a novel. Well, actually, Ronaldo's watching. He can chat in because I think every time we bring this up, we always get it wrong and he goes, no, here's what it actually was or whatever and gives us a title. But I know there was some sort of a spinoff. But yeah, you're right. There was supposed to be a lot of stuff.
yeah, and that's pretty much where that's going. Um,
Yeah, not much to say about like a anime
well,
project with a bunch of little. I
so
get
we
it.
still don't know exactly, but Lucas did add that just like in season one, it will be all Japanese slate of studios working on this series.
Okay, so it's gonna basically go back to the way season 1 or volume 1 was,
Yeah,
which could be good or bad.
yeah, and I think it's for the main reasons because they've been like once again, celebration is going to take place in Japan this year.
Right.
Last uh last last time it was in London. Now they moved
Mhm.
to Japan. So I think they're really just trying to bolster up their relationship with them and really put out more content, hence Acolyte and all that other stuff. They are really trying to appeal to that market. Uh,
That could be.
so I think that's why they're kind of doing that. But I mean, if it's an upgrade like season two was, fine. But if it's, I get that they're trying to recreate some of the story, or not recreate, but further some of the stories from season one. It just makes me a little nervous.
There's only a
Anytime we bring up
couple.
visions, it makes
Well,
me
that's
nervous.
well, yeah, but I mean, there's only a couple of stories that I think would even be worthy of follow-ups. And if they
True.
do it, I'm hoping that they do it in a style that is more like the anime that, you know, because if you had done Ronin, and they kind of did this in the first episode. I always talk about that anime Vampire Hunter D,
Mhm.
especially the second one, the second Vampire Hunter D movie. If they had done something more in like that, which it has some things in common, like there's echoes of Vampire Hunter D in the first episode of Volume 1 of Visions, but I don't know, there's just something that was missing. Now Ronaldo says, "Oh, those Visions reviews were fun." Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they
They were
were.
they were some of our they were some of our greatest moments. And then
Much
he
like
said,
this, much
yeah.
like the episode, I was very animated.
Yes. And then he says, "Ronan had a novel. I never finished it, but it was good." Read into that what you will. Well, I
Uh,
mean, hey, look, I still haven't finished the second Thrawn Ascendancy book, and it's amazing. So I'm right there with you. I get it. But yeah. Oh, did they don't actually say when it's released, do they? Vision season or volume
Visions?
3? Yeah.
No,
Okay. Is
nope.
this?
They don't have a
Yeah.
release date.
All right. This is another one of those sometime in 2025 things. All right. Well, you brought it up. So let's talk about it. Star Wars Celebration Japan.
Yep.
I mean, first of all, I really like the artwork on
I was
this
about to
thing.
say that's the artwork is sweet. I
Yeah,
was
that's really
just
cool.
about to
See,
say
if
that.
we get anime like this, if Visions would be like this, just put that as a story. I'm all
Yeah.
for it this way. Yeah. Give me
Right.
that. Give me that as a story, and I'd be all about it. But we don't. We get lightsaber umbrellas or something weird. But you know what? Not going to bag on the home country where Star Wars Celebration is being celebrated this year. And we do actually have a couple of audience members that watch us from Japan. So I got to be careful about trashing any kind of anime thing because, who knows? But
Right.
just to be fair, I am a huge anime fan. So there is that.
Oh man. The convention took a gap in 2024, but will continue its journey overseas in 2025. After visiting London, they will now head to Tokyo, which will host celebration on April 18th through the 20th of 2025. Um, Tickets went on sale months ago, but some people will be able to still maybe get some tickets for certain things.
Man, I wish we could
Um,
get like any kind of a pass or like
I know,
something. Of
right?
course, you still have to fly there, though. That's a problem. But I mean,
Yes, that's like $1,000 ticket.
yeah, or more,
um,
and that's probably one way.
right. Some guests have already been announced for the event, which will likely focus on promoting Andor season 2. Several members of the cast have already been confirmed, but with only 3 more months to go, we'll likely hear more about the guests before the end of the month. Um, the screening of the first few episodes of Andor season 2 might be in the cards since it will be start streaming only days after. The first trailer of the Mandalorian Grogu could debut there as well, although it will make its way out. Whether it makes its way out of the convention floor is anyone's guess. More announcements could include new live action and animated series, some specifics for Ahsoka season 2, which will start shooting around that time, and also new tidbits on the future of Star Wars films beyond the Mandalorian and Grogu. Other announcements could even include a new publishing initiative now that the High Republic is coming to a conclusion. Um, Panels celebrating the 10-year anniversary of The Force Awakens. Wow, it's been 10 years already.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Sheesh.
this May.
Yeah,
This May will be
wow.
10 years since The Force Awakens was released. Well, I know.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it seemed like we just saw it. Um, and then the 20-year anniversary of Revenge of the Sith are also
Yeah.
to be expected, even though we'll learn for sure once the schedule is released in a few weeks before the event kicks off. Um, yeah, so those are some of the things that will be kind of talked about, showcased at Celebration. I wonder if they're going to have any surprise shows that are going more shows that are going to pop up that they're just kind of keeping in the tuck, like Lando, for example, or
Oh, well,
uh,
yeah. I mean, that's
you
something that's
know.
come up like a gazillion times.
But it seems to me that I think in 2025 they have these few projects because they're really trying to prepare for 2026 and all these different movies and films that or seasons that have coming back. I really would love to hear more about um, James Mangold's film. Basically, what we're calling, the Dawn of the Jedi type of film, which is kind of like a Old Testament, uh, Ben Hurish type of vibe. So I would love to see or see and hear um, things about that particular project. I wonder if Taika Waititi, if they're going to announce some of his stuff that they keep making rumors about him. As far as Ryan Johnson, if his trilogy is still
Well, I mean,
underway.
so there was an article that I was reading. I don't know if you pulled it up from the same thing. You may have. Um, it's the one that you sent me, basically.
Mhm.
So if you got that one, no, that was okay. So the one that we were using to reference some of these things is different. I had pulled up another one that was fairly recent, and they were talking about that the Kevin Feige one was canceled, Ryan Johnson one was canceled. Um, but
Mm.
it's hard to tell though because you talk to a lot of these guys, and they seem to be under the impression that their project is still on. And every time they say something's canceled, it ends up being canceled, and they bring it back for a minute.
Yeah,
Or they talk about. You brought up Lando. That's a perfect example. They keep saying, "Well, it's coming," but
yeah, and the brothers are
nobody's
working
really.
on it.
Yeah, the brothers are working on it, but we never get any information on it.
Hmm.
There's no updates. Just every once in a while, they'll march the people out and just say, "Hey, here we are. We're still working on it," and then they go back, and you don't hear anything for another year. But what
Yeah,
intrigues me though, what was the thing that was going to be there that what were some of the who were did they mention any of the guests there?
not by name.
Okay.
But they just said some of the cast from Andor season 2.
Okay. But you are right, though. I mean, if they actually do something, like if they have a really crazy surprise guest, or maybe they announce some, new series. Because remember, they did that with Thrawn back when he was going to appear in Rebels. They sprung that on, whatever the previous year's Star Wars Celebration was, and that was completely unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing, hopefully, that because they're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of The Force Awakens, that they're going to talk about the Daisy Ridley film that's supposed to come out in a few years. At least maybe give us some more, information on that.
I
And
wonder if
then,
they're
of
gonna.
course,
I wonder if they're gonna
the
pay
Grogu.
Harrison Ford like $5 million or something to show up. It's like, come
Right.
on, dude, you got to come back out again. It's like this poor guy.
Yep.
But hey, he was a big part of The Force Awakens, though. He was
Hmm.
basically the key member. I mean, other
Yeah.
than Daisy Ridley's Rey, you could say that Han Solo was the focal point of that movie.
Yeah, true. And with Carrie Fisher being gone, she's not able to, pop up or anything like that. So you kind of have to, um, yeah, you kind of have to, have somebody else besides John Boyega, maybe Oscar Isaac if he,
I
feels
know
like
they
coming
can
out.
coax him out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Right.
so yeah, and then Mandalorian and Grogu, like I'm interested to hear more about that.
That would be
Be-
nice. I do
because I
hope
want to
they
hear
say
about the.
something.
I hope they talk about more about what if this is it for them, or are we getting another season of Mandalorian as well?
Yeah, you're right. That would actually be really nice to understand and really know definitively, I mean,
Hmm.
at that point. Celebration would be the perfect time to bring that up. Like, is this dead in the like in other words, is Mandalorian and Grogu essentially season 4 now? Or is this going to be more like a season 3.5 and we're still going to get season 4?
Right.
Yeah, I would love an answer either way. Now, Ronaldo says Ryan Johnson's trilogy is as real as a pink unicorn, or
Well, and that
Tauntaun, since we're in the Star Wars universe.
well, I already knew the Kevin Feige thing was dead in the water. He's even
Yeah,
said that.
yeah, I
But the
know.
Ryan Johnson, that's the first time I'm ever hearing that because that's one of those ones that's been hanging around for a very long time that's never gone away until what I'm hearing right now. So
Well, I
that's
don't know.
interesting.
I mean, I don't really even know how confirmed that is,
That's what I
because you
mean.
you really don't know. And honestly, it's no reflection on any of these websites either, because half the time these announcements will come from Lucasfilm and then they turn around and renege on the deal. Like, oh, just kidding. I mean, look at
Right.
we got the Lando announcement like what, 4 or 5 years ago, something stupid like that. Maybe 3 at the very minimum, and nothing. And that they made a big deal about that when they were announcing all those different projects. And we basically got all those projects. The other thing that I'm hoping, you mentioned Ahsoka season 2,
Hmm.
and that they might say something about that at Celebration. And usually, they always trot out Dave Filoni for some interview or something, and that's probably what they're going to talk about with him. But there's been a lot of little, I don't know if they're rumors or if any, I don't think anything's really confirmed, but it seems like Ewan McGregor might appear in that as Obi-Wan,
Hmm.
probably in the flashback scenes.
That would make sense.
Kind of like the way, or I don't know, maybe they do a World Between Worlds thing, kind of like how they got Anakin in there. Might as well
Hmm.
put Obi-Wan in there. Jeez, might as well put Qui-Gon in there. I mean, the great thing about the World Between Worlds is now you got a place where you can resurrect all these dead characters. It's
Hmm.
great. You don't even have to force ghost them anymore.
Exactly.
You can like basically just like trot out Harrison Ford again.
Or just have
Pay him
or have
$50 million.
have a whole flashback scene where you have like the whole Anakin and Luke training. I mean, not Anakin and Luke, Anakin and Obi-Wan training like they did in Obi-Wan.
Well, what would be great is that they did a flashback scene and gave us a 7, 8, and 9 we really wanted.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. It's like, the start of the movie is like, them reflecting, like,
Right.
and
Like,
then
and just have it, maybe it was a dream. Hey, Ray, you'll never believe this dream I had last night. Let me tell you about it. And then it becomes a 7, 8, 9 we really wanted. At this point, I would be fine to get it that way. I really would.
right.
It's a way
It,
that you could keep, it's almost like when J.J. Abrams remade Star Trek, and what they decided to do was actually keep the original timeline and just call it the Prime timeline. So
well,
you
could
got
just
Star Trek Prime, and then you got, the reboot timeline, the alternate one.
well, you just gotta, or this Family Guy it, man. It's kind of like that time when I, and
Yeah,
then it's
exactly.
this.
Or there you go. Let's get a live action version of Blue Harvest.
Oh man, it'd be hilarious.
That'd be awesome. All right, Ronaldo says maybe they'll officially announce that Hayden and Ewan will be in Ahsoka season 2. Oh,
No,
look at that. And he also says, or the Jeremy Allen White will be in Mandalorian and Grogu. Well, anything's possible. But just remember that even if you hear it at Celebration, even if it comes out of Kathleen Kennedy's twisted little mouth, it may not actually be accurate, true, or even in any way real. It could just be a fever dream. All right. So now the next thing we got to talk about is some of these books and comics that are coming out.
mm-hmm.
So there's like, I don't remember the exact titles. There's the final batch of High Republic novels are coming out, and we're also getting a book based on the Acolyte, which is interesting.
Right.
And I had said, in fact, you and I, it's funny because I almost wish that some of our conversation last night after we left and, went off the air was actually still rolling, because we actually talked about a lot of really cool Star Wars stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of the things that we were saying was that the Acolyte, even though it did have some issues, even with the story was salvageable enough that if they continued that, say in like a novel or a comic, I would even say an animated series, but you could run into those same issues. So if you leave it in the hands of the authors and you do like a good novel, like from Claudia Gray or something,
Mm-hmm.
then I think there's hope for even that story, and it would make sense. It would be a way that you can say, okay, they did bring up some interesting things in the Acolyte. You had the Plagueis thing, you had Khmer, you had some, cool characters in there. So if they just got rid of all the, bad writing, bad everything else, and it actually continued on in a novel form, I think that would be cool. And of course, there is a lot of cool, like Into the Light, I think, is one. That's a Claudia Gray one. There's, I think, like 2 or 3 novels or something that are coming out.
A Valiant Vow.
Okay.
Trials of the Jedi. So the list of books include Claudia Gray's Into the Light, the final young novel. Initiative will be out on April 1st. Justina Ireland's A Valiant Vow, the last middle grade book from the High Republic, which comes out May 6th. The story will conclude with its final adult novel, Charles Soule, Trials of the Jedi, which will be released on June 17th.
And he's another fantastic Star Wars novel. That guy has been writing stuff since Legends, the old expanded universe. His stuff is really good.
And then you have the Acolyte, as you were just aforementioned. Justina Ireland is writing one final story for Vanesha Rowe. Wayseeker has been branded as the Acolyte tie-in novel. It's set 20 years before the events of the Leslie Hetland series and will feature Vanesha and Master Indara. The writer confirmed on social media recently that this novel, along with A Valiant Vow, both releasing on the same day, will be her final contributions to Star Wars. The novel, while set in the High Republic era, featuring a character that was a major part of the novels from that time period, is not technically a part of the initiative. Also, set in the High Republic, it's Tessa Gratton's Yord and Jecki young adult novel, The Crystal Crown. It will also be a prequel to The Acolyte and will feature the two characters in a team up adventure while Yord was still a Padawan and their masters were busy elsewhere. So I believe that concludes. Yes, that concludes all the High Republic era characters and
In the books, yeah.
in the books.
And
Correct.
and the thing that is really interesting about all of this, because I don't know why, I remember this, especially when we were reviewing stuff during the Acolyte, because we not only reviewed the series, but we also talked about some of the other stuff. Because remember, Vanessa Rowe was actually the only character that was brought from the novels
Right.
into the series. You know, another reason why we got all excited and like, I mean, there was just so many things. If you actually go back and look at what people were saying and the news that was coming out, and I mean, if you
I just remember everybody was so hyped for Acolyte.
Oh man, and I mean myself
I mean,
included.
everybody was just so ready because it just sounded cool.
It sounded fantastic, and then we got what we got, and honestly,
you're just like,
man, I think that's why it failed, or at least partially.
All right, like, what the heck is this?
Ronaldo says, "Is that book Acolyte book an adaptation of the show?" No, it's actually It's set after
years before.
Years before, was it?
So yeah, so one of them. So some of them are like 20 years.
Well, one of them, but what about the other Acolyte book, the Wayfarer Seeker? Wayseeker?
Yeah, that's 20 years prior to, because that's with Master Endara. So this is before she dies in the opening episode. But
I guess you got to milk the character, right?
Yeah. So that's the one that's 20 years. That takes place 20 years before. The one with Yord and Jecki, or I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, that's it.
That is basically prior to Acolyte as well, because that's when Yord was still a Padawan.
Oh boy! And then, so he's like, "Hey, the Acolyte was cool." You know, hey, look, man, you gotta love Ronaldo, dude. He loves The Last Jedi. He loves his Acolyte,
and he loves Visions. So
he loves Visions. Yeah. Well, he's like the antithesis of you.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the opposite of you. He's the other side of your coin. Now, Chad writes in.
Chad.
He says, "How about a rated R Star Wars?" We've been saying that for a long time. But one of the things that we were always talking about, though, is that you got to be careful because, number one, as we stated before, really Star Wars is kind of like a fairy tale, right? But I wouldn't be opposed. It's kind of like, you know how once stuff like Winnie the Pooh and all that, when the public domain, they created all those like horror movie versions.
Cocaine Bear.
No, well, they got like, what is it? Like there's there was like Pooh, Blood and Honey or something. And then there's, I mean, I think, what are they on? Are they on Hulu? They might be on Hulu or Peacock or one of the two. And they might have made their way to Prime by now. But yeah, there was a company, I forgot which company it was, but they're taking a lot of these like public domain now characters, including some Disney ones, and they're just completely making these horror movies out of them. So,
well, the only problem, okay, if you were to do,
he's like, "What are you watching during your free time?" Hey, man, I will have you know that I have not seen them. I haven't watched them, and you were the one, by the way, that brought up the R-rated Star Wars movie. And since we're on the subject, Chad, what exactly are you looking to see in this R-rated Star Wars movie? Like, why is it rated R? That's what I want to know. Like, what kind of R-rated movie are you looking for?
We're gonna see them do some death sticks. We're gonna see some different types of force pushing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, Padme's OnlyFans.
But here's the thing, though, and the only way you could possibly do it is if you kind of almost do a Star Wars story, or a story set in the Star Wars universe, but it's not really using any of the main characters
Right.
because
Yeah. I mean, you
it's a
can't.
not only is it a fairy tale, but like remember it's for kids. Like Star Wars was created for kids, as we said before. So you can't necessarily
You can't
do a
go
rated R
overboard with
thing
it. But I
because
mean,
it's messing
no,
up the brand.
that's true.
That's
But we
almost like
did.
saying Dodge is going to start doing like, you know, well, I mean, even the caravans, like, we're a little bit more muscled out. They're not the traditional soccer mom, vehicles. I mean, even the Dodge Caravans had some, you had a few of them. They all had some kick to them, had a little muscle behind that. So that's what I'm saying. You can't really do it too much
No, but what you
without
could
messing up the
do,
brand.
and this is an example that we brought up, right? Maybe something on Hoth and a Wampa is attacking, but you don't know what it is yet. One of those like kind of The Thing type of movies or something.
Thriller, suspense
Yeah,
type
I mean,
stuff.
like a full-blown
Yeah.
horror movie even. In
Yeah.
fact, what was it? I don't think it was this past Halloween. Maybe it was a year. No, it might have been this past Halloween where we did the horror and Star Wars thing or whatever.
Hmm.
I mean, it could work. It could work.
Honestly, you know what? If they did,
So
uh,
Ronaldo says rated R Star Wars is a great idea, but is risky. And then of course Chad goes, yeah, blood and gore, i.e. like Deadpool. That's what he's looking for. He's looking
uh,
for like kind of like a Deadpool-ish type thing. And then Ronaldo says, I can imagine it'll be a marketing nightmare. Imagine trying to convince people to not bring your kids to watch Star Wars.
you're right.
Well, that's a good point too, though. Because the
Yeah.
brand has been for the last 50 years marketed as this kid-friendly. Now, they did run into trouble with Revenge of the Sith, speaking of it now being the 20th anniversary, because that Anakin scene was pretty gruesome when he was coming up out of the lava.
Hmm.
And it was the first Star Wars movie, I believe, to get a PG-13.
Yep.
So they were
First and only.
they were flirting with the idea, and they've had some somewhat sketchy themes, I think, in other films too.
I think you could do it. So to Chad's point, you could do it if you did like the High Republic, where you had like Skier and the Dream Gear and
Oh,
some of those things.
yeah, those things are
Those
like
things are freaky
freaky
enough
even
where
in the
you could.
comic book.
That's what I'm saying. Like you could do it with some of those things because at least it's canon and it's we're just imagining it, and uh you can make it a little gruesome.
Yep. All right, Chad's got a good idea. As soon as it pops up, there it goes. He says, "Start it with the series first, then the movies." Now, see this, Chad? These conversations are not above you. A lot of times he'll have our thing play in the background, but because we get too geeky and nerdy, like he only knows Star Wars at a surface level, basically.
Gotcha.
But see how easy it is to be casual. You
No,
playing?
quite casual.
While he's playing Apex, probably. But yeah, no, that's a good idea. You start with a series because if you do that, you actually limit the exposure. Because if you don't market it towards kids, a lot of parents aren't going to know about it. I mean, they barely know, like when a lot of the main stuff is coming out. So you could probably, if you wanted to, if you started it with a Disney Plus series, you could technically probably bury it enough, or at least market it to the people that you want. Get some sort of buzz going. Like that would actually be perfect for the High Republic. You do a High Republic series.
Yeah.
We'd been talking about that for years, or at least as many years as the High Republic's been out. And then maybe you do a movie, kind of like what you were saying. And then he says, and unfortunately he's not wrong, I don't think kids nowadays know what Star Wars is.
It's true.
It is true. There's a lot of newer people that,
Like Dom.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Dom's a good example. We were talking about that today, actually. Everybody kind of got into a big conversation about our podcast today, like
Oh,
toward the end of
wow.
the day. So Chad said Gen Zers think Star Wars is from Fortnite. That sounds like a Dom comment right there.
Yep.
But it's true because they had a bunch of Star Wars stuff in Fortnite, including the Palpatine announcement, which made like zero
No
sense from
sense.
a marketing perspective, but that's what they did. And so, yeah, a lot of people probably think that's the case because not only has Disney made a bunch of mistakes when it comes to the films and the shows and what they've done with that, but they've also been really bad at marketing it to the new generation. I think anyway.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
All right, so I think this is the final one. We have these other books, comics. We got this Reign of the Empire, the Mask of Fear book. We've got a new comic series, A Legacy of Vader. We got a Bad Batch book or something coming out. And then, of course, more High Republic comics. I believe this is also, just like it's the final series of books, I believe this is the final series of comics as well.
Yeah, we got a whole host of stuff. Let's see. So you have the Mask of Fear.
Yep.
Um,
Check.
will be the first in a new trilogy of novels dubbed Reign of the Empire that will bridge the gap between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Alexander Freed is writing the first installment. It comes out on February 25th, while Rebecca Roanhorse, Resistance Reborn, and Fran Wild, From a Certain Point of View, are taking over the follow-up scheduled for 2026 and 2027, respectively. The trilogy will focus on Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, Saw Gerrera, and the cast of original characters.
Yeah,
Um,
this looks like it's going to be in the spirit of the Bloodline novel. So I'm
yeah,
all aboard for that one. I am completely on
yeah,
board with it.
yeah. The Bloodline thing was definitely cool.
Yeah, that was one of the best of the newer canon books.
Bad Batch Sanctuary. Few details are known about this titles as of yet, but according to the updated list from Penguin Random House UK, Lamar Giles is writing a new Bad Batch novel titled Sanctuary that will come out on August 5th. We are still missing official confirmation and plot details. And that's the comics. The High Republic. The story of the High Republic is coming to an end in the comics. The miniseries Fear of the Jedi kicks off in February from Kevin Scott. The High Republic Adventures will continue its run with special annual issues coming out in January. Its spinoffs Echoes of Fear and Dispatches from the Occlusion Zone uh, are also set to wrap up in January. The High Republic mangas, The Edge of Balance Volume 4 and Premonition are also set for release this year.
Man, I mean, I am so behind on the High Republic stuff. Like I've read like maybe two or three of the novels. I read a bunch of the comics, and in a way, I'm kind of glad that it's ending because now it has a finite ending, so I can catch up.
Right, you can just eventually
It's
just
like, yeah,
almost like
I'm
binge
not
watch or binge read.
right, because I'm not 100% worried. I mean, I did actually download my first Star Wars audiobook. So I had Shadows of the Sith. I had the book, which is a really cool book, by the way. But I think I only got like maybe a third way through it. So I ended up getting the audiobook because I want to try the Star Wars audiobook experience. Everybody keeps talking about how great it is. So I want to check that out. But yeah, I'm really glad that the High Republic, at least for now, is giving me a chance to, like you said, binge read.
Yeah. Battle of Jakku series will wrap in the first quarter with his final three issues, while the Ewok miniseries will bye.
Really?
Miniseries,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
even have, I'm not even representing any of
exactly.
that.
Releases its final issue in January. The Ahsoka adaptation has two more issues to go. Um, Then Marvel will kick off the year with a one-shot comic celebrating its 10 years of writing Star Wars stories starting in February. Charles Soule's Legacy of Vader comics will bridge the gap between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker for Kylo. And then set before The Phantom Menace, the new Jedi Knights. No, I'm sorry. Set before The Phantom Menace, the new Jedi Knights comic series will have each of its issues focus on a different Jedi, including Yoda, Count Dooku, Mace Windu, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, among others. There's also a new Bad Batch comic run on the way titled Ghost Agents and set in the Clone Wars. There's also a new Hyperspace Stories issue focused on Qui-Gon, Mace Windu, and General Grievous on the way. That concludes all of the comics and novels.
And it also basically concludes all of the updates as well.
Indeed, indeed.
So, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. Ronaldo says, I'm so hyped for the Vader comic, specifically for Kylo, or especially for Kylo. I enjoyed the last comic. I thought the Kylo comic series was actually really good. I read that. I like how it basically told you how he met Snoke, and, well, not necessarily how he met him, but it gave you a little bit, because it actually acted like a prequel to The Last Jedi. It was a bridge between, I think it was between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, but it could have been before The Force Awakens. It might have been a prequel to The Force Awakens, because it did actually depict him, burning down the temple, killing a lot of the Jedi students and all that. So, yeah, this one looks to be promising. I've actually gotten a little bit away from the Star Wars comics, but I would like to get back, because, I mean, they're amazing. They really are. They're really good. It was just sucking up a ton of money. Like, I was spending so much money every month on all these comics, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Like, maybe I should just, like, kind of hold off. These comics are going to be there. I can come back to them if I need to, or, maybe not subscribe. Because what's cool is whenever they finish a series like that, they then release it as kind of like a big book.
Yeah, or like a bundle or something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, I even mean digitally, because I get all that stuff digitally. So it's nice to just go, look, let me just buy this whole, like, run in this basically one purchase,
Got you.
But yeah, I mean, when you look at it, it's like we said at the beginning of the show. This is not necessarily the year for the casual fan when it comes to Star Wars. But if you are a fan, you don't even necessarily have to be a hardcore fan, but if you're like a fan, or especially if you are a hardcore fan, this is going to be a really good year for Star Wars. So, I mean, I would still agree with you that Andor Season 2 is probably one of the big things that I'm looking forward to, but I have to say I'm looking forward to, like, that Reign of the Empire, let's see, I already forgot the title, Mask. See,
we got so many titles that you run through.
It is, man. I mean, we've been running through so many things, and I mean, it's just good. But the Legacy of Vader thing looks cool. Some of the High Republic comics look really good.
The Reign of the Empire, that Bloodline one.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a must read. So there's a lot, and don't forget, I mean, these are all the things that are at least scheduled to be released this year. Invariably, what's going to happen. They're going to probably change things or do whatever, but my hope is that they don't do too much when it comes to changing the schedule or whatever, because I actually think that this is a really good year for Star Wars fans. And 2026, we welcome theatrical releases again in the form of the Mandalorian Grogu.
We're going to get more series in 26.
Yeah, I would imagine that Ahsoka will probably drop then too.
So it's going to be started shooting in April.
Yep. And of course, as we hear things about it, we'll be sure to talk about it with you guys. Even if we don't do an entire show, it's kind of like, I brought up the fact that Ewan McGregor might be appearing in Ahsoka Season 2. I mean, that could have just been a show, but I'm saying it now. So now it doesn't have to be a show. So, as usual, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because our schedule lately has been kind of weird. So, you're going to want to know when we go on. And of course, as always, you guys are welcome to write in the comment section. Let us know what you think about these things. What is the project that you are looking forward to the most? That's what I want to know mainly in the comment section. Maybe I'll put a poll up on that one too, because I'm really curious on where you guys are at as far as, because again, we got a nice balance. We have, a series or whatever. We have some books. We have some comics. We, of course, have Celebration. We have a lot of different medium. This one, I think, is a little bit more book and comic heavy, but there's a lot of different projects that are coming out that cover different medium, and I'm wondering what you guys are actually looking forward to the most. So I guess that's going to do it until Sunday when we review the final episode of Skeleton Crew.
Which comes out tomorrow.
Out tomorrow. Yep, we'll review it Sunday. And I'm hoping, because again, this is the only other thing. Like, after the 4th episode, I'm like, you know what? This show is great. I'm not worried about it anymore. I'm not worried because it has a really good track record, but it would not be the first time that they've dropped the ball in the season finale. Like, It might even be good. It might be good, but it might not live up to what it should be.
Right.
So, hopefully that's not the case. But we'll be back next week, Sunday, 8 o'clock, live. We will be reviewing the season finale of Skeleton Crew. So until then, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.